Joe channel here over at Subscribestar. So Matt Walsh, Jeremy of TheQuartering. Matt Walsh, con ops, but making a good point. Walsh is a funny guy, but he's also completely owned and controlled. He knows who his masters are, and the definition of trapped in a golden cage. But I don't hate any of these guys because I think they do help move guys further to the right of the rabbit hole pipeline, which is a good thing. I remember when after Trump won in 2016, Google started to, we got to get rid of this right-wing pipeline and get rid of all the people who helped Trump get elected. Isn't that election interference? Aren't you so you're saying if you can get people off the air who support a president, then you actually, this NGO called Google actually controls elections. Like, you guys decide who gets selected, not elected. Hey, gee, it sure would be nice if our representatives did something about that. It's like, oh, you sweet summer child. They'd have to represent us to do something about that. And they very much don't. So when Google tells you the right-wing pipeline is bad, you can safely assume that it is critically important to study the things and the people that they have kicked off. Don't look at that. Here's a shiny object. Look at something else. It's like you look at all the people who got kicked off, and then you look at the people who remained on YouTube. I mean, the big names. Every once in a while, people small, like sub 100,000 channels will slip through the cracks. But you look at the guys, the big channels who remain on YouTube, you're like, this is kind of the definition of controlled ops. This is the red herring, the shiny object right wing that they want you to focus on. It's the right wing spectrum of, you can have fierce debates within this spectrum, 1 millimeter outside that spectrum, and there's that clip of Ben Shapiro saying, we need to destroy their lives. We need to get them fired, make them homeless, fire their wives and kids, destroy their lives. If they're a millimeter to the right wing of what he says the allowed opinions are. That's what controlled ops right wing is all about. I mean, they're absolute cancer. So with Jeremy, it's a trip to see how much the left wing kids on Twitter hate him, because if he disagrees with them a slight little bit, he's mostly a left wing guy. All it takes is he's got some moderate, reasonable, middle of the road takes on things. As you get older, you start to come, I guess, a little bit to the right, which should tell young. The thing is, when I was a young kid and like all the other young kids were these crazy left wingers, I looked at that and like, I got that. Even when I was a young kid, I was not obviously a smart young kid, but I did. That was one thing I got, where I looked at older adults and I saw that they were more conservative and more, they would think about things more carefully, and they were more generally right wing. And if I didn't understand the concept, and I looked at other kids who were just like anything the TV told them, I got, but over the years, like you see the facts before you. As you age, you're going to get more conservative. So maybe, young kids thinking like the voice of the youth, you realize like, yeah, but they just don't know anything. Even as a kid, I got that. And maybe some other kids did too. Anyway, so whenever anyone criticizes the current bread and circuses, the prawn, sports ball, soy slop, video games, mainstream media, the 300-pound couch potatoes will jiggle and wiggle in rage. How dare you say that my bread and circuses are the mindless distractions that they are pretty much basically designed to be, and they make you pay for these mindless distractions, so you think it's of value. If you took away all that soy slop that the mainstream is feeding you to distract you for a few weeks, you'd be alone with your thoughts, and then you'd have alt media. And basically, and the thing is, why I don't group alt media with the media, because alt media is over target. They're catching the anti-aircraft fire. They're the ones. If you're over target, you're trying to get these SPLC, ADLU, ACLU are trying to shut you down. The banks deplatform you, payment process, MasterCards, they all kick you off. That's telling me there's something going on. Alt media is if you only got so many minutes in the day to focus your attention, then Jeremy or Matt Walsh are not where you want to be focusing on. You want to go Odyssey, BitChute, all these other Gab and Telegram and all these other platforms. It's like, those are the guys who are over target because they're constantly having the machine try to shut them down. And when you say it out loud, you look at it and you're like, oh yeah, that is obvious. And then you see the people who are doing the shutting down like, no, we know what's good for you. Nina Jankowicz and the Ministry of Truth. And you look at them and you go, I'm starting to put on the They Live glasses. So basically, you go down the rabbit hole that the puppet masters don't want you to go down, but you have to go down the rabbit hole and come out hopefully the other side. Otherwise, this current humiliation ritual continues. You'd be forming militias and talking about the Federal Reserve and the crab people, and the mainstream media would quickly collapse. Think about this. If nobody watched mainstream media, the government would pass laws to import CNN into classrooms. Like there'd be a class would be MSNBC, CNN. It would be a 45-minute class on what they want you to know about current narratives. You think I'm kidding, but just pause for a second. You realize, Oh yeah, the absolute government schools. Not public schools. They're government schools. They absolutely would have that if they don't already. Like we have a counterbalance in Fox. It's like Fox isn't a counterbalance. OAN, I think that's One American News. That might be a counterbalance. But again, they're kicked off the mainstream and payment processors because they're over target, or at least they're coming closer to target. Fox isn't over target. Fox is not that different than CNN. It's whatever. It's within that limited spectrum of left and right. And sometimes the left will go outside that spectrum, as you maybe saw in 2013, if you're paying attention to those events. That seems to be the one time that the left wing started to slip the collar of their master with Occupy. It was the one time they came close to it. And then somebody rolls up with a briefcase full of cash and an AMG and says, hey, you're one of the leaders of this group. See this AMG? See this briefcase full of cash? I'm gonna sign this over to you, and I want you to go in a different direction with this. I want you to go after white people. Like, but they're not the ones who are pulling the strings on. Yeah, but see this briefcase full of cash? I'm like, oh, I do see this AMG, and it's like that's all it takes. And after Occupy, they switched and they started to focus on no. You don't understand. Bob the plumber in his $65,000 4-door work truck, who's got a house and he's plumbing and he's got this big gas guzzling SUV truck, and you're like, yeah, that's his work truck. Yeah, he's the enemy. Antifa needs to shut him down. Like, but he's personal wealth might be $2 million. That's doing pretty well from all the plumbing and contracting and whatever. It's like, yeah, but he's not the one who's pulling the strings. And like anyone who's not a child would look at that and see this. They always post this picture on Twitter of these guys in sunglasses and ball caps, and they look like the basic contractors type of guys who make sure that America runs. And they go, these guys are your enemies. And you're like, that's you want to go a couple of orders of magnitude of wealth above them? No. Don't go there. Don't go to the fraction of 1%. Just focus a little bit further down the platform. People who are middle class, upper middle class. Like that's weird. I mean, isn't anyone looking around like you're in Antifa BLM and go like, that's weird. And the BLM is hopeless. They're just too busy. So BLM, what happened to that $2 to $3 billion? Oh, it's justophobic for you to even ask that question. Anyway, I see I got distracted a little bit. Say la vie. If you set up small homeschools and they really started to catch on, they're growing a little bit. But I mean, people had a come to Jesus moment, or more likely to come to Odin and Mars moment. If homeschooling really caught on, the puppet masters would just outlaw it. They absolutely cannot allow the cattle to think for themselves and make their own decisions. Because if you had enough kids in base homeschooling learning about the real history, they'd remove, probably as they got older, 90% of the federal government, as the Founding Fathers intended. And the people who control America cannot allow that. America is designed to be a cattle debt slave nation to send taxes out of the country to other countries. If this sounds tinfoil hat, please look at the homeless tent cities throughout Oregon, Washington, California, and really the rest of the country. It's not looking too good. And look at that, and now juxtapose that to the money that's going to Ukraine and other various countries. Billions of dollars. Like, that's government money. No. I was going to say, do you think they print money? Well, actually, technically, they do. But it's your money. It's your labor. How many months out of the year do you work to send money to foreign countries? Like, that's kind of weird because we got homeless tent cities. That guy on the train who was arrested 44 times, the day before he got deleted by a guy in a chokehold, he pushed some woman. He tried to push some woman in front of the train tracks. Oh, yeah, how come that guy's not in like a mental hospital? Involuntary commitment for life. He's 44. You get arrested 44 times. You can't function in the outside world. You should be locked up forever. Oh, yeah, we're not going to do that. We're not going to. Oh, you guys want chaos. That was the goal. No, Reagan, you understand? He defunded. Yeah, but he's just one guy. He was in office for 8 years, and then Bush won for another 4 years. But after that, you could have either done it at the state level or you could have done it under Clinton. You could have just simply brought those things back. How come nobody did that? Not even at the state level. How come nobody did that? How come these blue cities, you arrest people 40 times, and then finally, somebody's got enough, has enough, and the guy gets himself deleted? Oh, because you want chaos the whole time, like the Soros DAs. You want chaos. That's what the cities want. This is like, it's all by design. Oh, you crazy tinfoil hat. Really? Because I'm looking around, I'm seeing people who've got this long arrest record and it's catch and release. Like, there's no other excuse for that. Like, that guy should have been in prison or a mental institution for the rest of his life. It sends a warning to other people, but also it's like it's somebody who legitimately will never be able to function in the outside, because sometimes people have mental illness. Sometimes it just can't be treated. That's the brutal reality. Is there's a certain percentage of people who just can't be outside pushing people in front of railroad tracks, which happens pretty commonly, or attacking people in the subway. And the reason there wasn't enough of an outcry over that is because if you've ever ridden the subway, you know what it's like. And people look at this situation and like, yeah, we're okay with it. That's why there's only like 100 protesters at the subway station, because anyone who's familiar with the subway is just, you can't, you look at it, it's like the guy was arrested 44 times and it's catch and release every single time. And he's hurt people. He attacked a 67-year-old woman one time. He actually hurts people. He's not just and you look at this and on Twitter, they're going, yeah, crazy people yelling on subways. It's just part and parcel of the vibrant cultural enrichment of a city. And other people come in there going, yeah, what if it wasn't? What if we didn't have to live like this? What are you talking about, snowflake? You're just scared of being pushed in front of the railroad tracks, because there's no shortage of videos on Gab and Telegram that will show that happening, or people being literally attacked under the eyes of cameras and in public around other people in subway stations. So you're saying you just accept living like this, part and parcel, living in a big city. Anyway, I don't know where I was going with this. People just kind of accept it because it's a slowly boiling frog, and we got video games and sports ball to distract us from the parasites looting the treasury. The average American is a debt slave working for foreign nations and people, and many people seem to be happy slaves. You saw how quickly the normies capitulated to tyranny over the past 3 years. Trust the government and media. Like, wait. But left or right, people didn't trust the government and media before 2019. What happened? Oh, well, they made us afraid to remove liberties. So if they want to remove liberties, all they have to do is make you afraid. You got it in one bucko. But what if you weren't afraid? What if you, never mind. Anyway, so the schools never taught people how to think. They taught them what to think. Rainbow flags and BLM. Wait a minute, what if that's all just cultural Bolshevism that's pushed by actual demons? What if the schools are totally controlled by a government, media, banking complex designed to turn out drones who never question the narrative? What if the BLM and rainbow groups are actually evil and everything the schools are teaching is a lie? Can we question everything? Not anymore. You must obey the puppet masters and never question the nonsense they're teaching. So we have homeless tent cities and 2 homicides a day in Chicago, but you're focusing on anything other than that. Yeah, that's right. Any red herring that comes across the path to throw the dogs off the scent. If you can't question a narrative, it's not education, it's indoctrination, which is exactly what cultural Bolshevism is. It's a religion. You can see the emotional response kids and adults have when somebody merely says words that contradict that narrative. Brainwashed kids turn into soy-filled brainwashed adults, the participation trophy generation, which I think started in the early 80s. It actually started a long time ago, and you start to see the fruits of that poison tree. These people just parrot any bit of nonsense the puppet masters at MSNBC tell them to. The average IQ of America falls every year. It's becoming a nation of mindless drones who sit in front of a screen and get brainwashed to believe any little bit of nonsense that is on that screen. Kardashian Nation. They're not aware of dialogue and debate because there is none on the mainstream spaces. You have to go to alt media for that. And the masters are constantly trying to shut them down and have the banks and payment processors cancel them. They don't seem to have the best ideas because the truth doesn't fear investigation. The truth welcomes the open marketplace of ideas. Lies and false narratives have to be protected by censorship. Every once in a while on YouTube is just mostly cancer, like Matt Walsh. I'm sorry if you're a fan of his. Every once in a while you have an anomaly who will slip through the cracks. And, his time on YouTube is he's guys right on a razor's edge of just being eated. Anyway, video games. First of all, Jeremy TheQuartering never claimed to be anything other than a video game, board game, Magic the Gathering, pop culture type of guy who was a left-winger who was kind of reluctantly becoming something else because the left is leaving a lot of these people behind. To me, Jeremy is much more honest than Matt Walsh. If you remember when Matt Walsh was asked some hard questions about his employer and their bias, he chose not to dignify the question with a response, which is kind of weird because the right wing doesn't want to shy away from hard questions, except that they do all the time. You remember Faith Goldie at the free speech event with Jordan Peterson, I think, and some other, maybe Shapiro. It's like, yeah, free speech event, uncancelable. Oh, we can't have disinvite Faith Goldie. And there was another black guy who was a speaker, but I think he dared to criticize that country, which must not be named. So these 2 speakers got uninvited from a free speech event. Yeah, that's the right wing for you. The right wing isn't conservative. They're just They're just a left wing, but they're 10 years behind them. None of the Charlie Kirk types are on the right. He was another guy who refused to answer a question. So, hey, is backdoor loving a conservative value? A Groiper asked that, and he wouldn't answer the question. It's like, yeah, it's a gross question for sure. He asked it in a little bit more graphic way, but it's like, what are conservative values? Like, oh, we don't want to say them because we don't want to get nailed down on them, because conservative values are just liberal values, but 10 years behind. Oh, so you're not conservatives because the conservatives are moving to the right. The conservatives are not in the mainstream. The conservatives are a bunch of names that have all been kicked off YouTube, which, I probably shouldn't name them too often on YouTube, but those are the conservatives because they're all on Odyssey, BitChute, and on private websites, Gab and Telegram. They're not, now Twitter, they're a little on Twitter, coming back to Twitter a little bit, but a lot of them have been kicked off again after a few months. Anyway, so a lot of these guys are Quartering is a kind of a good example of the reluctant rise of the liberal libertarian who finally realized the slippery slope of the left wing leads to sterilizing kids. There's a group of left wingers who the left has left behind. Same thing happened with feminism and the BLTs, where the T and the Q don't actually belong in the gay or technically the straight community, because both of those are sexual based groups, and I don't mean sex as the action, the adverb, the verb. I mean as the noun, the sexual binary between life. They're not focused on how people. What about the jellyfish? How people identify, or was it the man of war or something? It's like it turns into a rock. Whatever. I'm talking about humans. They're not focused. Gays are not focused on how people identify. Gays and straights focus on sex, and it's interesting to see that the Q and T is becoming a bridge too far for the gay community on their dating sites, because they're like, yeah, we're like, gender identity doesn't mean anything to us. We're based on sexual attraction. If we're same sex or opposite sex attraction, it's like that's our reality, and you're trying to impose your reality on us, which is kind of violates the non-aggression principle. I care less about Disney. It's all going to be poison, which is where we are now. Jazz's parents were able to make millions of dollars off of surfing this Kali Yuga. The waters are looking more like rivers of blood, but the money and attention is pretty sweet. So this all ties back to the bread and circuses of sports ball, prawn, video games, and all the things the puppet masters push to distract the cattle. No, the BLT stuff is not organic. It is a social contagion introduced from an outside source and propagated by the media, education, medical complex. This is your country on cultural Bolshevism. How does it get worse than sterilizing kids? That's a genocide. That's that's a world destroying event. You're cutting off the buds so they can't form new life. That's a genocide, and parents are using it for Facebook dopamine, and they're proud of themselves. Proud mother of a BLT kid, hashtag. Now we're on the oppression hierarchy. We are marginalized and oppressed. And Dave Chappelle had some good points about that, though. He himself is a nut job in his own right, but in his last comedy special, he did make some interesting points about that. Except the whole house of cards is a fictional globalist construct. If enough people stop believing in it, it just collapses back into dust, except, of course, for the victims of the butchers. Keep in mind, a medical industry, the Magnus H special, had 2 clinics a few decades ago. Now it is $1 billion corporate. It's like this, I don't know, the tentacles of this Cthulhu monster of, oh, we've got clinics all over the country where it's affirming care. You're monsters? Yeah, we're monsters. Takes off the masks. You see, I'll just call them crab people for the algorithm. So it turns out there's big money in the pharmaceuticals to sell to children brainwashed by globalism. No, this is organic. I thought of this myself. No, you didn't. It came from your teachers, the media, and social media. No, it's organic. No, it's not. And in 20 years, if you make it, you'll look back at this time and you're like, how did the adults in the room allow this to happen? Well, hey, adults unfortunately get brainwashed also. They were able to create this industry out of thin air, and it's actually genius when you think about it. I mean, it's evil genius. It's like, how does the devil function on Earth? Well, I look at these clinics and I think, like, yeah, if you were going to believe in an anthropomorphic deity of Lucifer, I could look at these clinics and say, yeah, I can kind of see it. I can kind of see it. Where people talking about, greater forces beyond this mortal coil. I look at this stuff happening and going, yeah, this is why people wouldn't believe in that. I can kind of see, like, it's that, or it's hard to believe that humans are just so evil and duplicitous and susceptible to brainwashing. It's like, well, yeah, they really are susceptible to brainwashing. But it's funny to see what the universities will slowly stop studying over the years, areas of mass media brainwashing, propaganda, and other areas of study that just become delisted, and then they become actively haram. Like, to study how the media brainwashes people now is a far right-wing dog whistle, because they know that the media is controlled by the same, I'll just say it's controlled. So I know this is doing a lot of heavy lifting for video games, but they're not as actively evil as like TV and movies and streaming shows, but they are a massive distraction from what is going on. And the globalists do use video games and anime to push globalist propaganda. All the characters are all just fat and rainbow ugly, and everything is it's just like they Americanize everything by adding 50 pounds and making everyone diverse and ugly and gross. And you look at the Japanese original stuff, you're like, oh, I want that. Oh, that's a far right-wing dog whistle. So the Japanese are far right. Now, it's okay for them to have beautiful things, but you have to have ugly things, because the globalists told you have to have ugly things. Anything the Japanese make, the globalist Americans will destroy. Everything has to be a vector for Marxist, anti-white, anti-family, anti-nation propaganda. So even with anime, they'll just translate it to include a message about how Zur Otherkin has 3 dads and whatever other American nonsense, fat nonsense is popular at the time. Anyway, yeah, they control the left wing and the right wing. If you think... yeah, Reagan was not the great president. The right wing seems to think he was. On the left wing, they have absolute control, but on the right wing, they have what is this guy's website he writes for? Shapiro's site. That's the con ops control of the right wing. It's like people think it's the right wing. You're like, so what exactly are they conserving? Do they have the conservative values of their great grandfather? Oh no, not naturally, not of course. Those monsters. Your grandfather? Oh no, those people were all Hugo Boss. So what exactly are you conserving? Oh, we're conserving about 5-10 years behind the liberals. So nothing. Then like you just a paycheck. Like Matt Walsh is a multimillionaire because Ben Shapiro is using him as a puppet to try to keep the right wing, the vaguely MAGA right wing, from actually going further right. And to be fair, you have to leave YouTube to do it, but you look at how much money these people are making, you go, that's what a golden cage is like. And then you look at the real right wing who have, no money, but they're still they're still putting out the message anywhere. It's like, yeah, that's the resistance. No, that's the real resistance. The people all on Odyssey, BitChute, Gab, Telegram, all these other platforms. It's like, yeah, that's the real right wing. That's the underground. That's the resistance. Those are the people who are over target. The Laura Towlers who go out shopping one day and try to pay for something with a credit card and discover that, they can't go shopping and they can't take an Uber because everything is canceled because the masters decided to cut off, all the financial institutions decided to cut them off. Like, that's what it's like to be over target. Yeah, these guys will never be over target. They're just in this. And then, like, I'm nothing against Jeremy, because he never pretended to be anything other than a left winger who's talking about video games, who's slowly coming to the right. And for him, like for these people to actually come to the real right, means you give up that golden cage. And in both of their cases, it's millions of dollars and a sweet, comfortable lifestyle, and it all goes away if they actually leave the cage. And it's like most people are just not going to do that. Anyway, like, comment, subscribe, check out the subscribe star, and I'll see you guys all next episode.